Okay, folks, so I've been asked by a number of friends of mine how I go about refilling these 1 pound portable propane tanks you can get. These are really convenient, obviously. Maybe you've got a buddy heater like this that uses the tanks, or maybe you've got a little propane torch in your garage, or maybe even running your camp stove. And they're convenient in the fact that they're portable, and they certainly work well. But as you know, it's it's a lot of waste. I mean, particularly in a buddy heater like this running on high, this doesn't last forever. And so and a lot of folks refill these. I'll start this video by just clarifying that this is what I do. Remind everybody to make good choices on their own, whatever they may or may not be. I will reference it on the bottles themselves. They do reference that they say never refill this cylinder. Refilling may cause explosion. Then it goes on to further state that federal law prohibits or forbids transportation of refilled canisters like this, referencing even a penalty of up to $500,000 fine, 5 years imprisonment. It references code 49 USC 5124. So definitely illegal technically to transport these if you've refilled them. But hey, maybe you're just using them in a buddy heater in your garage or something and you want to refill them. You can buy refill adapters to refill these using a 20-pound tank. We know that to refill this 20-pound tank, I think it costs, I just refilled this one last week. Went to the local gas station, had to refill it for me, and I think it cost me like $12, I think. And this is 20 pounds. So these are 1 pound tanks. So this thing is essentially 20 of these green ones fits into one of those. And heck, these things will run you $4, $5 sometimes for a 2-pack. So, how nice would it be to refill these, at like, 35 to 40 cents, maybe 50 cents max, if we could get that much propane back in these. So there's adapters you can get all over the place. You can get them at Walmart, Harbor Freight now, that screw onto here, and they work okay, but they're a little slow and they've got some limitations. So I built this one a year or two ago, and it works with a similar principle, but it's got some upgrades to it. So first of all this I bought on Amazon, by the way, just a quick order. I think the whole thing cost me like $13 for all the parts, maybe $15. It's just got it's got one of these threaded connectors that screws onto the standard propane tanks, 20-pound propane tanks. Just got a standard elbow, then a little section of copper tubing, and then it's got one of these little ball valves on it, and then it's got the connector that is made up with these 1 pound tanks. And so all you need to do is use this, a pair of forceps. I like to use these ones that have a curve on the tip of them, and you'll see why in a sec. And then a pair of good gloves, and of course have the garage or wherever you're doing this, do it outside where it's well ventilated. I've got the side garage door open and the other side open, so plenty of ventilation here. So I'm going to show you how I set this up to refill these tanks. It's really quick and easy, and again, I'll just say this works for me, and everyone should do this, at their own risk. There, as everything in life, there is always inherent risks in things we do. So be safe as best you can. And if this is not for you, don't try it. But this works for me, and gosh, it sure saves me a whole lot of money. These are, these tanks are convenient, but man, they rack up, and it's just such a waste too. To end up throwing these away when they're done. When you, I'd just rather refill them and use them for things here in the garage and whatnot. So anyway, so let me get this set up and I'll show you how I do this. Folks, so here's an empty tank. The first thing I'll do is I'll take my forceps and I'll just gently push it into the valve here. Just make sure there's, they seem to do better if these are truly empty. Sometimes there'll be some residual gas or pressure inside these little tanks. And so you see my apparatus is set up here on the tank. It's already screwed, the main valve of the tank is open. The valve, my ball valve on my apparatus is closed, which is why I like this. You don't have to keep messing with the main tank valve. And it's just sit on the edge of this milk crate. And then I've got a little hook on a strap that ties to the back crate, so it keeps it from tilting forward. It works for me. Find something that's stable for you. And then anyway, the idea with these tanks is, and these forceps is, there's this pressure relief valve right here on each of these tanks. And we're going to open that periodically while this is filling to relieve the pressure that's building as this thing fills up with gas. And so the other thing about that little valve, the orientation of it's important. So when I put it on here, I'm going to swing this apparatus left or right depending on how that valve ends up being oriented once I screw it on here. And you want that valve to be on the downward position. And the idea being, as this tank fills up with fuel, with liquid propane, when it gets to the point where liquid starts to just barely jet out of that little valve that I'll show you in a second, then that's perfect. When you close it all off and finish there, it ends up being just under where the top of the tank is. And I weighed that compared to a brand new tank, and that's exactly the same as a brand new tank. So anyway, that valve works a little counterintuitive. Again, I use these little forceps that have the curve on them, and because it goes in there and pinches that little valve perfectly. And to open the valve, you actually pull up on it to open it slightly, and then that loses the pressure. So let me get it on here, and we'll show you how to fill this tank. As with these propane tanks, like with everything else, you just want to make sure you're very careful threading it on. Make sure you don't cross thread those threads. If you've ever put these on a camp stove from time to time, you may know what I'm talking about. So anyway, so I got on there nice and snug. The valve now is on this left side, which is in the upper position, so that's backwards. So that's why I like to swing this. So I'll just pull this forward for a sec. I'm going to swing my tank the other way. And I like to use this box. It happens to be the perfect height. So now that little valve is on the downward position. So it's the low point of the top of this tank now. So I'll take the forceps and pinch them onto that little valve, and I'm good to go. So now all I have to do is open up my ball valve. You may hear the hiss of the tank, now we have the liquid tank, the liquid propane in this tank is now flowing as a liquid down into this 1 pound, 1 pound tank. So I'll just let it go for a second until I kind of stop hearing the hissing is what I usually do. I can still hear it faintly hissing as it fills up. While it's doing that, I'll note the connector that I bought that I showed at the beginning that connects to the tank. You can buy these in a restricted flow and then a more open flow. If you're going to buy one, they both work just fine. But if you buy one of the one that's restricted, it'll just take a little bit longer because it's a smaller hole coming through that connector. So I bought one of the ones that was, I think it's called unrestricted or high flow or something like that. It looks exactly the same as the low flow one, but it fills the tank faster. So anyway, so I have kind of stopped hearing the hissing. So I'm just going to gently pull on these forceps and open that valve and relieve the pressure that's built up inside this tank. You can leave it; it'll still continue to fill, but as the pressure builds, it feels slower and slower and slower and slower. So I'm just going to gently pull on that. You can hear the hissing. That's just the vapor pressure at the top of this tank escaping, and I'll hold it for 15-20 seconds here. There's no set time necessarily, but we'll do this 2 or 3 times as it builds up pressure. So you could sit here and do this the whole time and hold it. It'll go a little bit faster, but I find it's really not that necessary. I'll just hold it for a little bit here. I'll let it go, and it closes off, and you can hear it hissing as the flow increases faster into that propane, that 1 pound tank. So I'll let it sit for another few seconds here. At the end of the video, I'll put some exact economics here, but the way it works out, these tanks, I think it costs me $12 or something like that, $15 at the most to refill this tank at the gas station, and this holds 20 pounds, so it's essentially 20 of these green tanks. This thing literally, it cost me maybe 50 cents, 45 cents. I'll do the exact math at the end here, but so much cheaper, and it doesn't take that long at all, really. So anyway, the hissing's kind of stopped a little bit, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull it. You'll notice when I did that time, there was actual liquid propane coming out. That's why it's important to wear these good leather gloves. And so since I closed the valve when I saw that, and I'm good. I'll take off the forceps, and I'll carefully unscrew this from the apparatus. And what you end up with is a perfectly full tank. It feels exactly like a brand new full tank, and you can feel it sloshing around a little bit. It's not so full that it's over full. Again, I did a weight comparison of one of the ones I've done plus against a brand new one from the store, and they're about the same. So last thing I did also is I went on Amazon, and you can buy these nice brass caps for these propane tanks. They weren't that expensive at all. I think it came in a pack of like 8 or something like that. And I like to put these on here. You know, the plastic ones that come on these in the store aren't designed to cap off this, you know, for under any pressure. They're just there to protect the threads of these tanks. These are nice because it protects the threads, but also they've got these nice rubber gaskets in there, and they're solid brass. So just in case that little valve were not to be completely seated all the way or something during the process, then you have a nice solid cap for these. But anyway, that's all there is to it. It's super simple and super cheap. The economics on this is crazy. How much you can save by just refilling your own tank. So again, do it your own. You know, there is some risk to this. Obviously, if this is not for you, don't try it. But if you're interested in refilling, it's great. You can buy the refillers at other, you know, Walmart and other stores, Harbor Freight and whatnot. I like this system because it allows me to do this left-right thing with the valve. I like having this little ball valve on the front to turn on and off here all in front without having to mess with the main tank. So, all right, we'll do a second one here. Set up the exact same way. The little valve is on the downward position of this tank, and it's going to pinch my forceps onto that little post. Open it up. We'll see if this one goes a little bit faster. I didn't mention on the other video, but one of the things I noticed is this goes faster and it works better the colder it is. Being outside in cold temperatures makes it work really well. I know some of the instructions you'll see in the other versions of this, guys will take their 20-pound tank and even actually stick it in their freezer for an hour, or chest freezer for an hour, so get it good and cold. Seems like the colder it is, just seems to work better. Less propane's volatilizing, and it just stays in liquid form better. I don't know. It just does seem to go a little quicker the colder it is. So I'll do it out here in the garage or out in the driveway on the trailer when it's good and cold. You probably can see my breath. It's pretty chilly tonight. It's in the 20s here tonight. So anyway, I've stopped hearing any hissing come out of here, so I'm going to gently pull on those forceps to relieve the pressure. And again, there's no, you could do this 4 or 5 times for shorter intervals. I just like to let it go for a bit. Again, you're just relieving the vapor pressure that builds up at the top of this tank as the liquid is filling it. Because essentially what's happening is this little tank is coming into equilibrium with the larger tank under pressure. And of course, this liquid coming in, you know, the pressure of this tank is pushing that liquid down. But as the pressure in the little tank builds up, of course, the flow will start to drop off and go slower and slower. So you're just relieving that pressure until the liquid reaches towards the top of the tank. Seems the way, you know, the lengths I do it, usually takes maybe 2-3 times, maybe 4 max. Time of relieving the pressure before it actually fills up. And again, I usually will just wait till I hear the hissing of the liquid propane flowing in. It's got this little hiss to it as it comes to equilibrium. I'll just wait till that hiss kind of dies off, and that tells me it's getting slower and slower on the refill, and that's when I'll pull the needle valve again and relieve some more of that pressure. So again, good gloves, they're important. Also, these tanks get really cold. As you can imagine, they're filling up with this cold propane, and especially as you relieve the pressure, just, you know, the laws of thermodynamics here, as the pressure drops off and some of that liquid changes to vapor, it of course absorbs heat, which makes these tanks really cold. Which is why these tanks, you'll see them freeze on the outside when they're in use, because the propane is vaporizing and it takes heat for that. So all right, so yeah, just gently pull on, and a little bit of actual. You saw that little spurt of actual liquid, not just a little bit of vapor, but the actual liquid came out. So that tells me it's good to go. So I'll take the forceps off. Carefully unscrew it. After I close the valve, obviously. And yep, feels just like a normal full tank. Not, you know, there's a little bit of sloshing around, you know, indicating that it's not completely full. There's a little bit of that headspace in there, and it feels just like a nice full tank. So anyway, again, hope this is inspiring, guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.